August 13th, 2004, a day all of Southwest Florida remembers. Winds up to 145 miles an hour, waves 15 feet high, pounding rain, all creating a wicked combination of water and wind we now know as Hurricane Charley. Buildings were demolished, homes destroyed, trees and utility poles snapped, but more importantly, lives changed forever. Good evening. I'm NBC2 Chief Meteorologist Robert Van Winkle. Over the next hour, we're going to show you another side of Hurricane Charley, the inside. The side that put lives at danger to bring you the information needed for survival. The side that watched in anguish as homes and buildings were ripped apart or even destroyed. And the side that rises in hope today as we look to the future. Living Through the Eye, 6 months after Hurricane Charley, reveals the heart-wrenching stories of people and families who lost nearly everything. The uplifting stories of unity as we all continue to recover. And the personal stories of the people reporting from inside the eye, the staff at NBC2 News. We have some latest information for you about the situation with Hurricane Charley. We're going to go to a special feature we're bringing you this afternoon. We were tracking the eye as it moved across Cuba, and it was still continuing on a northerly course.
That morning, like every morning, it's a morning of planning. It's a morning of how are we going to cover the events that happened that day.
Watch the eye of the storm, which you can clearly see on your scope. It is moving off to the north and to the east. The storm was expected to brush by to the west, or at least be very close to us on Friday.
So I just came in with basic rain gear, a few snacks and water, and that's it. I was just thinking we'd just do our job, go home, it'd be just any other day.
It does seem apparent that there's a little bit of that jog that we're talking about. Let me just draw that now.
We came to work thinking that this was going to be a Tampa event.
So the day started out with a sense of urgency, but in no way a sense of dread or trepidation that something, borderline catastrophic was about to happen.
Doing something you do routinely every day was nearly impossible that day.
The anxiety kept building on Friday morning.
We were putting stuff in the hallways. We were getting the live truck ready. We were running those cables up 5 flights of stairs.
To the 5th floor of this building so that we can give you the best pictures possible of what is going on here, give you a clear idea of what we're facing and what we're going to be encountering over the next few hours.
I felt pretty good that morning. I felt very confident. I felt very safe.
I've been chasing hurricanes since 1990, so every one we went after, I was there.
All of a sudden, everything started moving around in the weather department, like something was happening, something was wrong, and then all of a sudden I heard Robert go, Kara, we gotta go on right now.
Then it happened, and then we heard it's coming for us. There's nothing else we can do.
Again, it's just, you just can't argue with what we're seeing here. This is a definite turn to the right. The turn to the right became more and more of a turn instead of a jog. I mean, we were persistently tracking this thing off to the right. That was a moment that really sort of was a shock.
But there is no question there has been a course change.
You could tell in the voices of Robert Van Winkle and of Jim Marifo on ABC that this was extremely serious business. It was a matter of life or death. And it just changed the way we all felt, I think, on the news desk.
It is bearing down on the Lee Island coast. The forecast track has moved.
The moment that I remember that day, the moment that I'll live with the rest of my life, was that moment when I was back in the Weather Center with the meteorologists, and they started putting the dots on the screen and said, "I've got bad news." I think that was the moment. I think the moment that they did that, I realized that we were in danger.
I remember it very distinctly. It was, stop what you're doing, get inside, take shelter. This is it. It's coming for us. It's taking that sharp turn, and we just have to hunker down and pray, basically.
This isn't a game anymore. This isn't how we normally do business. This is different. This is a different element. But when she pointed it out that it was headed right towards us, it hit me hard, real hard.
It was like, oh my God, we've got to get prepared. Where is everyone? Where are all of the people who work here? And what are they doing? and are they safe?
We all, I think, got that feeling of, oh my goodness, this is real.
I felt the, oh my God, when I saw our general manager's wife, Lou Pontius, over here in the corner, put her hand in her head and shake it and walk out. Because I had said, Bowman's Beach right here where my cursor is, now just 2 miles from Bowman's Beach, the leading edge about 3 miles away, where we anticipate and expect 140-mile-per-hour winds. And I remember watching Lou Pontius just, you could just see the color drain from her face, and she walked away. And I thought, at the same time, I thought, wow, did you hear what you just said? Oh my God.
Two things went through my mind. First was, are my wife and son safe? Secondly, this is going to be the biggest story of my career.
I've done a lot of stuff, seen a lot of strange things, seen a lot of interesting things. This by far was the worst thing I ever been involved in.
I've been here long enough now, and I've watched enough storms skirt the coast, the Gulf Coast of Southwest Florida, that I was like everyone else. I didn't think it was going to hit here. I wasn't prepared as much personally as I should have been. Like many Southwest Floridians, you know, my family was at my house, my pets were at my house.
We thought we were going to be brushed with a powerful hurricane at that point, which would have meant some significant storm surge, a lot of rain, and a lot of wind.
Here shortly, and we can imagine that within the next hour or two, this entire area where we're standing will be completely submerged.
We're here right now in Vanderbilt Beach in North Naples. This is the area of greatest concern for county officials at this hour, and you can see why. The waves here really pounding in. In fact, I'm holding on to my photographer right now. Is in Charlotte County, a place very susceptible to major storm surge. Todd, how are the conditions there?
Well, I heard Jim talking a couple minutes ago about vertical evacuation. Unfortunately, that's not really an opportunity or an option here in downtown Punta Gorda. Very small buildings. In fact, one of the places where people were finding refuge was the Holiday Inn right on Charlotte Harbor along US 41. That's only a 2-story hotel, and people are now getting out and getting out fast. To put it in perspective for us, where we're at in downtown Punta Gorda is 5 foot of elevation. If we're getting a 10-foot storm surge, obviously you can do the math and figure out that even this will be underwater fairly soon. We are prepared to pull out as well. We had our crews on the barrier islands get out, but we're going to try to stay down here and get you video of the activity, the storm surge, and the damage it's going to cause in the Punta Gorda area as it happens, and then we'll bring it to you live for as long as we can, as long as we're safe.
I really thought for a brief period of time that I was actually going to die.
I probably was like a lot of people here, thinking that the likelihood was that the hurricane would probably pass by to the west of us and threaten maybe Tampa Bay.
Well, folks, we've been out here all day and all night, and as you know, it's really hard right now. Go ahead and take a look out there. This beach was 275 yards all the way to the ocean. As you can see now, there's a river of water goes out over Estero Boulevard.
And it didn't matter if it looked pretty or not. We just needed to get the job done. And so it really became our sole responsibility to show people what was going on, because after, I'd say, 3 o'clock, we were the only thing that people could see.
It's totally unbelievable out here, but I'll tell you, here, the water is just absolutely amazing. It's coming over everything.
It was obviously very intense, and I wanted to show that. It was something I had never seen, and I'm sure many people have never seen in their life. So I wanted to show them that. I was very focused on giving them those pictures and images to remember, to see.
Back over toward the northeast.
The storm is moving northeast now at about 20 miles per hour. That puts it over Punta Gorda in just about 45 minutes to an hour. Punta Gorda residents, downtown, it's 15 miles away. Todd Jurkowski, you are 15 miles away from the advance of this storm.
You do those things that TV people do. You show the wind and you talk about the sheets of rain and all of that. We had a little wind gauge that I was using. We've been using a wind gauge. We're blocked by the wind, and we're seeing gusts, here 20 to 25 miles an hour. During one of my live shots early on, I made the comment of reinforcing what Wayne Saladay said, which was, if anyone thinks that a hurricane cannot strike Southwest Florida,
Hurricane Charley is going to make a believer out of them. People in Charlotte County are seeing it here.
A short while ago, the hurricane aircraft reported estimated winds at the surface of 140 miles an hour, and that would make it a Cat 4 hurricane.
I started off anyway, trying to stay, calm. There was a Category 2 hurricane headed up to the west coast of Florida. By 11:30, it was starting to be. I think it was a Cat 3 by then. Certainly, it was gaining strength, and it was moving off to the right. And by around noon, 1 o'clock. Now a Category 4 hurricane with winds in excess of 140 miles per hour around the center of the storm. It's moving toward Charlotte Harbor. It became a really gut-wrenching time.
We had a storm that went from 105 to 150 mile-an-hour winds in a span of about 5 hours or so.
A Category 4 storm, Hurricane Charley, 145 miles per hour. They're calling it now a life-threatening situation.
On Friday the 13th, we weren't forecasting anymore. We were play-by-play announcers because the eye was on our Doppler radar, and we were just trying to tell people exactly what was happening and what we thought was going to happen within the next 20 minutes. It really has kept its symmetry going. It looks like a very healthy hurricane.
That's certainly bad news for the folks in Port Charlotte, a very vulnerable county.
I'll never forget when I said, you need to take action to protect yourself right now. You need to get in the closet. Think about maybe some extra protection for yourself. Should a window breach, should there be some minor roof damage or major roof damage, protecting yourself in your home. That's where we want you to stay. I remember watching that happen on television when Andrew came across Dade County in '92. And I remember thinking, wow, in my whole career, I wonder how I would do in a situation like that. And it was surreal. It really was. Thank God a lot of people listened.
I was very worried about my friends that had decided to stay. By the time we knew it was turning, it was too late. It was too late. So I was very worried about all of my friends, about the business, about just about everything I love about here. And it was terrifying to watch it on the Weather Channel. Hi there. Good, how are you? Hi. 467, please. The reason we wrote the book is because we love it here. And people I know love the islands. And we'll do whatever we can to get it back on its feet. Hi. The first edition came out about 3 years ago. And then we did the second edition when that one had completely sold out. We're used to selling 200 books a week, approximately, and it's been down to about 100 a week. You guys know the news, right?
No. The store's a nice meeting place. It's a place to stop in, get a sandwich. A lot of the workers use the store.
The store's going to be closed after today. Yeah, the store's closing today.
Oh, that's okay.
I just certainly hope that it's a temporary thing and not, not something that I don't know what we'd do without the store.
To Diane and Jim. January 10th? Today's the 10th.
Yes.
Last day. The islands have been hit so hard. On one end, there are no accommodations. There's so few accommodations out here now because they've been so damaged by the storm that we don't get the high-end customers that we used to get that would stay on the islands. And then on the other end, with the toll doubling, we don't get the day trippers. Therefore, it's very tough for small businesses on the island to survive that double whammy. It's very tough. So ever since Charley, we've had problems with our roof. I mean, this is an institution out here. I love this store. I don't know, it's just hard to take.
I'm going to zoom in again on this. We're tracking the eye of Charley up Charlotte Harbor. Now the eye wall, the leading edge of the eye wall, is working its way right over Punta Gorda Isles.
You could see in gradients of it getting windier and windier and darker and darker. And at some point, it just became apparent that you don't need anyone telling you that you're in the middle of getting hit by a hurricane.
I was pretty sure that if I lived through this, that it was going to be a miracle.
amazing. It was coming over everything.
And the last we knew is that it was took a turn and was going to hit Fort Myers, go up the Caloosahatchee, and that was the last we heard.
They're totally under the water. Absolutely amazing. We'll continue to get the pictures to you.
6 miles away, off it went, on to the north, and you know, it sort of grazed off Sanibel, and then the rest is history. Then it went back to the right, cut Captiva, North Captiva in half, and went over Usepa and right up Boquilla and Charlotte Harbor.
The sun is out in Boquilla right now, of all things.
Amazing.
Right.
It continues to get worse and worse here in Punta Gorda. I want to show you, move you over here. This gives you an indication of the winds we're starting to see. Palm trees are blowing, so on and so forth.
In this business, you got to stay till the last possible minute. Then hopefully you can get out. But here I didn't get out.
We're going to continue to stay here as Hurricane Charley comes closer. But for now, let's send it back to the studio.
Some guy come running out of the building with a storm chaser truck, and he said it'll be here in 9 minutes. And I thought he meant the storm surge. And I said, what'll be here in 9 minutes? He said the storm. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. He said, no, it made a right-hand turn, it's coming right up the harbor.
We started to pick up our stuff and just heard this rumbling, that terrible noise that people describe. And all I could think of was, there's a tornado nearby.
When the tail end of that storm came through, there was stuff beating on that truck like just a gang out there just hammering away with boards and smashing glass, and it was just, it seemed like every time something hit the truck, it got louder and louder and louder. So it was quite an experience.
I didn't even walk into this place and look what the damage was for, I would say, 2 weeks. When I saw the house just totally destroyed, I just couldn't believe it, you know. And you know, every time I tried to walk in, I had to get back out again. We had a big walk-in closet. It goes back towards those pipes because that was our laundry room over there. We were fixing everything up to retire. Boy, our kitchen used to be right here. We had upper cabinets and everything, the beautiful cabinets. I was in total shock for, I would say, the first 2 months. It's like nothing, you know. It's zero. As far as I was concerned, take a bulldozer and just shove it to the curb. And, but my husband just kept being very persistent and kept picking things and finding things. 1929 Packard. This was my husband's pride and joy. He's had it for over 30 years and he totally put it together, but it's original. It's got some bumps and scratches, but not like, see this little dent there. We eloped in this when we got married. And that was over 20 years ago. So it has a lot of sentimental memories too.
Noisy. Well, they've been going on for months, all this stuff.
It was built in 1915. We spent quite a bit of time restoring it. It had, again, as a testimony to its toughness, it had its original windows. Even the glass hadn't been broken by a hurricane in 90 years.
What do I see? Well, last week there was 3 houses right over there. There was an empty lot. They smashed them down and hauled them away.
It was going to be our forever place. It was our forever house. We didn't even come to look at our house until much later because we figured it wasn't here. And we were right, it wasn't here.
Well, every day so many things were wrong, huh? Every day it was something, huh? My satellite dish went to the moon with Charlie. Huh?
He lost his car in Francis, we lost the house in Charlie, and the garage flooded in Jean.
My phone service went out for three times in a month. So, and I was the only car on the road that I could see in front of me or in back of me. Nobody else was on the road but me. And by the time I got to Deep Creek, I don't know, must have taken me half an hour at the most. Half an hour later, the eye of the hurricane came over Deep Creek.
The windows blew from the east side of the house. Pool cage went down. Water was pouring in. Trees are coming down. The roof starts leaking. I'm in a little stairwell, and I mean, I really thought we were going to die. I thought this was it.
For what happened to my home, I could have stayed here. But I think what I would have saw outside would have scared me to death, I think. The aftermath, the emotional distress that went through after that was, I'm just now calming down to what I consider myself to be normal.
3 of the mobiles across the street ended up in our canal. So we're still waiting for the cleanup here.
We spent all our married life trying to save homes, and somehow on our watch we lost one. And that's tough too, because you feel, I know it's illogical, but you feel that the responsibility, you know, that we couldn't save it. You know, this house was here for, what, 85 years? 89 years. So, that's tough.
It was kind of a real good lesson because we were very materialistic, and now that material stuff just doesn't make a difference anymore.
It's never really totally your house. It's loaned to you for a while. And that's a lifestyle that is different than a new house. I truly don't know if I can live in a new house.
We're still going to go with some of our dreams. It's not like what we plan on doing, but they're not going to be as elaborate, because you know in a flash it can be gone.
You and I have been in this business a while. I don't believe I've ever heard of anybody live on television describing what it's like to go through the eye of a hurricane. Maybe it's happened before, but maybe you're the first. What else do you see? What else is going? What does the sky condition look like?
There was honestly about 3 or 4 minutes where I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to die.
Hurricane Charley tested the resolve of all of us. As a meteorologist, covering the storm was a defining point in my career. But our reporters and photographers here at NBC2 not only covered the story, they became part of it, like what happened here at our news bureau in Punta Gorda. Living Through the Eye, 6 months after Charley, continues with their stories, reporting from inside the eye. What are we doing? Okay, Amy Osher in Punta Gorda. Amy, we see Hurricane Charley bearing down Charlotte Harbor right for you. What's it like?
Yeah, Robert, we noticed it about a half an hour ago. We noticed a definite pickup in all the conditions here. The wind seems like it's going due west down Marion Avenue. And as I'm standing here, I'm watching trees literally get peeled away. There's limbs flying around.
Going through my mind of, I know that Amy Osher is in Charlotte County. I know that Todd Jerkowski is in Charlotte County. You know, I remember telling specific people, you have to seek safety immediately. You have to find some place to be immediately.
And we've lost power. I'm assuming that a good section of downtown Punta Gorda lost power. It's really too hard to even stand up. The wind is completely vertical. As you said, it just picked up. Once it hits hard.
Are you safe enough? Do you have shelter?
Yeah, we have shelter. It's pitch black in here. I'm standing outside now and watching it unfold. But we're thinking in a few minutes we better get inside.
Absolutely. That's our advice to everybody watching. Do that right now. Don't. We're done with you, Amy. Time to go inside.
Thanks. Take care.
That's good. You too.
Basically, alongside the building here, just shooting whatever I could of what the hurricane was doing to downtown Punta Gorda. The roof of that car wash over there. I saw all of it go. Every bit of it gone, flying through the air.
I was concerned about his safety because he was gone now. There was a tripod and no mic. So I couldn't see how he'd even made it alive because I shimmied up and down the walls looking for him and I couldn't find him.
As soon as I got to the edge of the building here, I couldn't walk. The wind was so powerful, and then the wind started to change, it started to swirl, and all this glass started coming back and pelting me. And the last thing I said while I was outside to myself out loud was, God, what do I do now?
At one point it was howling, and I went out there to say, you know, Mike, you really need to come in then. And I was horrified to see his tripod there and no mic, no camera. So I went outside and I wanted to see if I could see him if he was trapped somewhere. So I went outside and I shimmied along the wall. I tried to stay as close as I could because so many things were flying.
I finally realized, well, I'm trapped here during the duration. I can't get back. If the wind keeps changing like it is now, all the debris is going to be coming at me. And I just hunkered down. I said, this is it.
As I stepped back in, I started hearing a crack and a change. I guess it was a change in pressure. So just in time, I turned and ducked, and then the whole front of the building just blew in on me. All of a sudden, the hurricane was in the office, and everything was swirling around. The lights were falling, the ceiling was falling, the set got blown over. So I grabbed the cushion like a shield, and I ran into my office, which was the next room. And I guess it's just a knee-jerk reaction because I wasn't thinking, and it had glass walls, glass window too, and that shattered and blew in. So I grabbed my seat cushion and ran to the next room. That was the last room I had. So I just sat in the corner and put the cushion over my head and just waited to see if that wall was going to hold up.
At that moment, what were you doing?
I was outside fighting for my life. This wall collapsed behind me, fell on my leg, and I went like, ow, what's that? And there was a hole in the wall, so I slowly just crawled through the hole in the wall.
So this was a gaping hole. So I still had that cushion in my hands. So I ran out, went into the next office, which was the edit bay right here.
This is the area where I climbed through the wall, and then I got on my feet and I started yelling for Amy, Amy, where are you? But she couldn't hear me, you know, and I couldn't hear her either, even if she could. And so I walked back here a little further looking around, and I went into the edit bay, which was like right here, and there was Amy in the corner, you know, with a cushion like over her head.
The door opened and Mike walked in covered with mud. And I said, where have you been? And he told me that he'd been laying on the side of the building. And I said, well, grab a cushion and sit down. He was screaming then, he said, at the top of his lungs, screaming my name. And I was just on the other side of that wall and I couldn't hear him. That's how loud it was. And so he thought that I'd left the building looking for him. So he thought I was out there, you know, just getting trashed. And I thought he was a goner. And it's amazing that we were like this far apart. And finally he opened the door and I saw him covered with mud because he'd been laying in the dirt.
But the whole time I was kind of worried for her because I know it must have been a terrorizing experience to be trapped alone in a building falling down around you. So I knew she was terrified.
Whenever there's a big storm, I'm going to remember where I spent the most memorable storm of my life was with Mike.
Something you'll never forget.
Todd Jakowski, tell us what's going on.
We are at the Holiday Inn in Punta Gorda, as I've been mentioning, and we are now seeing unbelievable structure damage. This hotel is being ripped apart.
We knew exactly what we wanted to do, but the hotel just started peeling away. I mean, layer after layer, and windows being blown out of rooms, and our best option was to go into a truck.
All over the place. We are sitting inside of our live truck, which if any of you have ever seen are very large, very heavy pieces, and we're being knocked around. It's like an amusement park ride.
It felt like there was at least 10 people around the van just pushing and shaking it as hard as they can.
I looked out the door. I cracked it just enough so I could hang on to it and make sure I could close it. I looked out and I was watching that Holiday Inn just disappear piece by piece. Sheet metal flying off, windows blowing out, pieces of the roof, all kind of insulation, just everything was that it was deteriorating right in front of my eyes.
There was honestly about 3 or 4 minutes where I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to die.
I am so incredibly proud of this staff and what they did to save lives during August 13th. I think we absolutely did everything we possibly could.
In time, I couldn't even tell you how long it was, but when you're sitting in there waiting for it to go, it's like holding your breath. Forever is a long time.
It was rough. Anyone trapped out here in the Punta Gorda, Port Charlotte area, they went through hell. I mean, they really went through a war.
It was quite a stunning shock all of a sudden at one time to realize that we were going to be directly impacted by it.
We have over 39 antique stores in the city of Arcadia. Martin Luther King had quite a reputation, you know, and it's celebrated every year, and I usually write in it.
It's slowly but surely coming back. I mean, I'm just amazed how well it's come back in just a few months, considering how bad it looked the first time I walked down the street.
Thank you very much. Craig, can we interrupt for a second?
Yes, absolutely. We're hearing a serious problem. One of the major shelters in Arcadia right now is losing its roof, and we understand there are 1,200 people in that shelter right now. We want to take a look.
Never did we dream that, you know, like I say, that it would be we would have to evacuate out of a building like this, and we really wasn't sure what we were going to anticipate when we got here.
That was our main shelter. We had about 1,400 people in there. We had to get out of there. Our fire department, we commandeered a school bus.
We got a bus from the Heritage Baptist Church next door to the fire station and started making our way this way. At that time, we took the bus, which would hold about 40 to 50 people, and started evacuating them to the high school just across the street. And my vehicle, my city vehicle, we would also put as many as we could in that. We made possibly 10 to 20 trips.
We've got about 13,500 homes in DeSoto County, and over 10,000 of them were damaged. And so I think if you looked at percentages, our problems were as serious or more so than anybody else's.
Probably one of the biggest things that we do is we offer hope. What you see behind me are a Mennonite disaster relief team that is working with our church. We basically give them the homes that are needing repairs. We've already made arrangements for all the supplies and the resources that they need to do the repairs for those homes. We have right now about 900 homes that we're working with. And those are homes that have some definite needs that cannot be met by insurance and other resources that the persons have. We'll be working at this for at least 1.5 years to 2 years to try to help as many residents as we can in this county to get back on their feet and get moving forward.
We anticipate this summer we're going to have as many as 160, 65 workers here doing nothing but rehab, construction, and rebuilding for us.
The most interesting thing was the last person I interviewed before I left town was a man named Howard Melton. He's basically the historian for the town. And he had been talking about how 100 years ago, basically, the town had burned down. And first person I saw when I walked down the street was Howard Melton. And he said this is the worst disaster that's happened since 100 years ago. So he was my first story.
It is still a major hurricane, and Arcadia is sitting to the right of the eye, and they are feeling the full fury of what's left of that storm right now, which could be about 110 or 115 miles an hour.
It's been since Hurricane Donna since we've really had a major problem up in this area, and which is, you know, over 40 years ago.
Even now, it's like gradually everything's still coming back, but almost everything you get volunteers or people coming into the community that are giving money.
The hurricanes just amplify the human need and the human suffering that's there. These are people who are working 2 and 3 jobs to keep food on the table, and suddenly they don't know what to do. With the structure we've put in place, we're able to take people from those kinds of situations and show them how to connect to resources, how to get manpower, how to do the things that will make them able to move from the disaster setting and situation to being actually recovered and on their own feet.
We learned a lot from, you know, a landfall of a Category 4 storm. We realized that, you know, regardless of how much you prepare, there's always going to be some loopholes, but my people performed at 150% for probably 7 or 8 days straight.
Probably the greatest satisfaction I have is seeing all of the community come together, the churches, the nonprofit groups, the government, the working relationship we have with FEMA. That's probably given me a tremendous satisfaction because I know the long term for this community, when everyone's working together, is going to be a whole lot better.
It's starting to feel homey. It'll never be really home. It's a good substitute for it.
Boxes would be average. They've been bringing in about 200 boxes since the storm. Actually, I think it helped us. Probably the water coming up into the estuaries washed out all the baby shrimp, and they had a chance to come out here and grow. Our trips have been remarkable since then. Really good. More in quantity and larger size. Excellent trips that we haven't seen in years. We're bringing in, more shrimp. Volume is what's keeping us going right now. We're not making a lot of money. We're bringing in a lot of shrimp, but we're not making a lot of money because our price is continuing to go down. And because of the hurricane, the price of our fuel went way up.
I've kind of always had this philosophy, wherever I drop my head's my home. Yeah, you're a big boy. You're going to have 1,000 people within these 2 parks. Where do you move 1,000 people to?
Especially if there's nothing out there for them.
Looks like we got some people moving in. It's almost like a mini neighborhood. You just, after a while, you learn to you see the same cars, you see the same people, so gradually you begin to, hi, how you doing? It's different. It's a microcosm of a lot of cultures all together in one spot. A lot of families with kids. Wherever we go, the dog is known before we are. Okay, go see him. Yeah.
Gradually, everybody's coming out of their trailer with the warm air and getting outside and talking and, where were you when this happened? And, what did you do? Where did you go?
There were a couple nights where we did end up in the car.
Come, press forward.
When you sign your contract, they're saying 18 to 24 months from the date. But the date they're using is the date of the hurricane, basically.
Yeah, my mother passed away. It's my mother. It's too soon to talk about.
But that was really rough for both of us. I mean, we're fighting the battle of trying to get into a home, and we're also fighting with the idea of how to help the rest of her family and her cope with the loss from others. So it was a little bit tight. You take each day as it comes.
That's all you need to do. This is it for now. Anybody else that I can help now, I'll help. I may not be able to do it monetary-wise, but volunteering services or taking what I have abundance of and giving it to someone else is a priority. This is home now.
Eventually life will become what it was, and we all move on and we never forget.
Sometimes the worst of times brings out the best in people. And absolutely, Hurricane Charley brought out the best in human nature in Southwest Florida.
If you look at why people come here, the beaches are gorgeous. The shelling has never been better. The weather, of course, is still perfect. So it can't help but come back. But it's going to take a year, I think, to rebuild.
40% of the hurricanes that make landfall in the United States hit Florida.
November we started this particular cruise. This cruise is very popular with residents of Sanibel and Captiva and Fort Myers who are winter residents who want to get an account of what happened on August 13th.
This is 6 months after the storm, and these are mangroves, which are native vegetation which can sustain high winds. But you can just look at these mangroves and just realize the stress of the winds and what they're under.
From the boat you can really see the mangrove damage, and prior to this hurricane I really thought the mangroves are almost kind of hurricane proof. You can really see that the mangroves did really have a lot of damage from the hurricane.
You experience a complete change of your home. You're deprived from your home for 3 months. You have no access to it. You're in an environment where there's no electricity, there's no running water. The sound of chainsaws has replaced the sound of the seashore and the birds.
My wife and I back in Canada, this is what we do for a living. We're chainsaw artists, and what that is just taking a log and using a chainsaw and trying to carve out different figures from a log using a chainsaw.
It's going to be Neptune of the sea, and then there'll be fish going in amongst the coral from the bottom to the top.
I don't visualize anything. I see a tree just like everybody else sees. Charley. Hurricane Charley took these trees down, so instead of having them taken right out, they're trying to make them into pieces of art.
Norfolk pine, and they bleed pretty bad. Up until today, there was hardly anything. You know, it all depends on the waves. The waves is bringing them in.
Guys, look at this! Guys, look at this one! Matthew, look at this one!
I know nothing about shells, but they obviously know what they're looking for.
Drive down Periwinkle, and it used to be completely covered, you know, covered over, and that's all changed now. If we'd never been here before, why, you know, it'd still be pretty. But the character's still the same. It's just lost a bunch of big trees.
This is a bonanza here, for sure. After seeing them wash, especially this late in the day, the pickers have been through them usually by this time.
The peace, the serenity, the beaches and the shells. The essence of the beach is here. This truly is paradise.
Battered buildings, missing roofs, deserted streets, Hurricane Charley changed the landscape of Southwest Florida forever, and it changed all our lives. But the loss inspired a coming together that continues to improve our lives as well. Hurricane Charley forced us to see the potential in the remnants, the strength in our struggle, and the beginnings of transformation. Most importantly, Hurricane Charley provided us the framework for the power of preparation.
But gradually, everybody's coming out of their trailer with the warm air and getting outside and talking and, you know, where were you when this happened, and, you know, what did you do, where did you go?
The resorts are going to reopen. They're going to be brand spanking new.
It really impacted this county in a way that, you know, can't be measured in dollars and claims because it just really took the wind out of a lot of people's lives.
6 months later, it's amazing to see how the human spirit has come through, but that the process to recover is still taking a long time.
If we can get a house, I like the idea of concrete and rebar, you know.
We lost 7 schools to Charley, but our kids are collecting money to send to the tsunami victims. That, if nothing else, that shows the spirit and the determination of these people to come back to a sense of normalcy.
Parts of our house are all over town now. They're going to be used
in homes that, that after the hurricane were strong enough and still have enough of the structure left that now we can help other people replace their windows that they lost. That's the good thing that came out of it.